My name is Matt Sparazza,
I'm Father Sam Kachuba.
and today we are joined by Patrick Neve, rhymes with heavy. And and Patrick is the most famous Catholic substacker on the internet right now. I think that we could leave his bio at that. I don't know if the pillar counts.
No,
because it like kind of brings you. It's like technically on Substack, but they bring you outside of your traditional Substack.
yeah, it's like
format.
it's so big. It's like, I mean, I was talking. So I know JD. I actually went to a wedding where at his parish. So he and I ran into each other at a wedding.
Cool.
And they have like an account manager, man, like at Substack that helps them run their Substack because they're one of the biggest Substacks on the platform, and so it barely counts as Substack, you know?
Right. That's
it's
actually
so big.
that's cool. I didn't know that they were that big.
Yeah, they're number 2
I didn't
in
know
religion.
that they were. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know they were so big that they would get their own dedicated team member.
Yes. Yeah,
I
I don't
mean,
know if
that's
it's
the goal.
dedicated, but they have like an enterprise manager at Substack.
Yeah. I mean, I want to promote the pillar, so it's dedicated. That's it.
The pillar is great.
That's what we're going with. That's what we're going with.
Well, Patrick, you're the first person that we've ever talked to who's like having a viral moment too, this is fun.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Fortunately for my sanity and for my family's attention to me, my attention to them, it's ending. We're on the downswing. But yeah, if I it has been crazy. This has happened to me in the past. So, but once when I was doing, it's happened to me in the past, but like it was contained to Twitter where it was like a couple of days of nonstop replies. But this is the first time it's like been something that's long form and gone multiple platforms and resulted in multiple interview requests. That's the first time it's happened like that. The other time was when my peanut butter got confiscated by the TSA. That was another time that I had a viral moment on Twitter.
All right, tell me about it.
That one was bigger. So I got my peanut butter confiscated by the TSA. I just fired off a tweet, and it was in like I had a scheduler at the time, so I was scheduling like 4 or 5 days in advance, and so I just like kind of popped this tweet in my queue, and I just let it run, and I didn't even remember it was going out, and then I woke up one day and I was like 60,000 likes. Hold on. It went viral. I was like, the TSA took my peanut butter and they said, sorry, no liquids, gels, or aerosols. And I was like, I need you to tell me which one of those things you think peanut butter is, because it's none of those things. And it went 11 million views. The Washington Post interviewed me about it. Like it was stupid.
Awesome.
I was like, the Washington Post, it was like, can we interview you? Can we get a comment on this? And I was like, yeah, obviously. That's so funny. Of course you can. It's so stupid. And so that was a very interesting Twitter moment. But this is by far, this is at least something that's related to the thing that I like talking about. This is one of a kind in my experience.
Yeah.
Well, we could probably do about an hour on peanut butter if you'd like to here.
Yeah.
We could just
I have a lot of
get
opinions.
really into the weeds on that.
I won't
Yeah.
go into it.
You have a lot of opinions. I'm allergic. You know,
Yeah.
this is a perfect.
You just gotta
combination.
microdose it, dude. You just gotta you just gotta microdose it, man.
Just to be clear, Patrick is not a doctor. he
Yeah.
is, according to his bio, a comedian and systematic theologian. Okay,
a little combo there. That's a bad combo because you never know when I'm kidding. That's an issue. And so when I post something that people disagree with, they go like, "Oh, this is the comedian side, huh?" And I'm like, "No, I'm serious about that."
That's awesome.
That's perfect. Well, so lest we leave our audience, out of the know, what's the viral moment that's going on for you right now?
So I posted a Substack article called "The Parish You Hate Might Need You," and it was about church hopping. So this phenomenon where people will go from church to church, sometimes week to week, sometimes month to month, or year to year. And I think that's bad, but and I thought that most people would agree with that. But a lot of people, they church hop because of some real, like, let's say, for lack of a better term, like a real trauma they've experienced or a real kind of negative experience at their parish. And so the response was a lot of like, no, I need to go where I'm fed and I'm taken care of. And I think that's fine and true. But like, we're not, it's if a kid is eating dinner at a different house every night, something's wrong, And to the extent to which a kid has control over that, he should fix it. Like a teenager never eating at home is like choosing to do something wrong. An 8-year-old is like trying to escape a situation that he has no power over. And
Right,
so
right.
because we're adults and we have power over our communities, we should. The point was, hey, you know, the point was we should consider doing this. I want to
I
clarify
see.
that. That's why I
Right.
said might need you. I tried to hedge. You know, a lot of people when
Right.
a lot of the controversies on Twitter I've gotten into, people have been like, well, it's because you speak in absolutes. You know, and so I tried to hedge and not speak in absolutes. But
And it got you in trouble.
absolutes are in the eye of the beholder. Exactly. You know, it was like, you know, it felt like an absolute, and so, you know, people were like, are you telling me I'm doing something wrong? Are you telling me I need to keep my kids at a heretical church where they consecrate pizza and beer? Yes, of course. That's exactly what I'm saying. You saw right through me. You got me.
Couldn't you tell?
Couldn't you tell? Yeah, you found the invisible ink where I wrote "endanger your child's soul" at the bottom. Ah,
Right.
foiled again. But
Yeah, I do think that I think that caveat, right, that hedging is actually like it's vital, like you're hedging
yes.
for a
Yeah,
reason.
it's
And I'm glad that you led with, although I imagine the reason you included this in your pitch here is because some people didn't take that, right? And they
Correct.
got very
Yes.
upset. I had the great pleasure of reading yours and responses, and I was like, man, people are angry.
yes.
There are some angry people
Yeah.
about this.
And I get it
Um,
because, you know, people have had legitimate experience. I mean, whenever you have church hurt conversations, there's
Yeah.
like two camps of people. It's like camp one, group A, is I've experienced like a catastrophic, unspeakable horror at the hands of a clergy. And in the other camp, it's I didn't like that very much. And the problem is they both talk the same and you can never tell who's who.
mhm, mhm.
You can never tell who's like, oh, this person was like abused and dealt with something that was crazy. And it's this
Mhm.
person was like, you know, the homily was, you know, the priest is a Republican or a Democrat. So I didn't like it. You know,
Right,
it's
right.
always like, oh, come on, you could have gotten over that. But, you know, so
Right.
my post was more towards those other people of like, hey, you know, if you're going to a different church every week, and some people said, you know, like you gotta discern between people who are like church hopping once. So I'm moving churches one time versus I'm moving churches all the time. I think I didn't make that distinction clear enough, but I think it might be a distinction without a difference. It's like if you get in that habit of leaving every time there's something wrong, you start to get into that habit and like it starts to happen more often than you think.
Mhm.
You know, it's like people who leave, they're constantly moving jobs. You know, whenever they meet some kind of challenge, they don't push through it, they just leave. And I want people to consider not doing that because
Right.
it puts us in this position where, and we can get into this, but it puts people into the position of people aren't making friends and the faithful Catholics are all spread out and they aren't making meaningful change together. And the parish that you
Yeah.
love is only that way because people that loved it stuck with it. And that the parish you left, the parish that you don't like or hate, could be the one that becomes that
Mhm.
parish later. It'll just take time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can let's try to break it down then a little bit here and like create the scenarios,
Sure.
and we'll try to talk through each different one.
Yeah. Good idea.
So you've got somebody who's they're new to town, and there are 3 parishes in town, and they visit each one to see which one they're gonna like, even if they don't like they live geographically in one of the parishes, because that's always a helpful thing to make sure people understand that a parish is a geographically defined reality, and it's all the Catholics who live in this geographical territory. The church has said this is your parish. And so then there's a parish church. That's where you go to mass. But the community of people living there in that geographically defined territory, that's the parish that you're in. But maybe there's 3 parishes within this one town. So you decide you're going to go and visit all of them just to kind of see what they're like.
Mhm.
Okay. In the United States, we have parishes, but we have like parish boundaries, but nobody pays attention to
No,
them.
they might as well not
I'm-
exist. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Functionally, they don't really exist, but they do technically exist.
Mhm.
So suppose you've come and you're just trying to see what each parish is like. All right, you're taking the survey.
Mhm.
I don't really have a problem with that kind of church hopping. That to me seems like
Right.
somebody's just doing
church
their
hopping
due
with a
diligence.
decision to be made.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that to me, like that's a perfectly acceptable kind of parish hopping for a Catholic to engage in when they've, the particular conditions. I'm new to town.
Yes.
I'm trying to
Where do we
find the right
go?
place.
Yeah.
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 I'm looking for a place that, I have a family and we'd like to be in a place that's a really good, parish that's alive, that has humans that look like us, or that have small humans like we have small humans, and
Yes.
then we can go from there. All right. And then you have like the church hopping that I don't like the new pastor, and so I'm going to go and follow the old pastor to his new parish.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I like the old pastor, or I just don't like the new pastor, and so I'm going to go to a church that I think I will like more. Tell us about the problems there. I have opinions, but
Yeah. So
that's a pastor
it
speaking.
confuses.
And they're the opposite of whatever your opinion is.
Yeah. It confuses. What it does, it confuses the purpose of it. It confuses what a parish is. I think the first one, while it's understandable and super common, still can fall into this trap where you have people that never really make the decision. They kind of like float around. I think you should have a preference for the church that is like geographically closest to you. Boundaries are kind of notwithstanding. I think just for a practical purpose of like, so for an example for us, so we now happen to live in the geographical boundaries of the parish that I grew up at. When we moved back to Florida, we did not. But we still went there because I had this like historical presence at the church. So I don't think it's necessarily like a territorial boundary thing. There's like, it is better for a community if something ties you to the community. Like it would take a lot for me to leave my church. Like it would have to really decay into a point where I thought it would endanger my family if I stayed. Because like my grandfather is buried in the backyard of the parish. You know what I mean? Like my parents got married there. I got married there. All my sacraments I received there. It's home, and those people are my people. They know me. I grew up with them. And the other parishes in town, I would be like, I really don't feel like going to the kind of like beachy church today. I'm in Florida. I'd rather go to the kind of like inland church where people actually dress up. So it's very like, my feelings that day depend where I go to church. I think the problem with both of those, even though one is more understandable than the other and probably less of a problem, is that it confuses like trying to find a product that you enjoy, the liturgy, like you treating the liturgy like a product, saying like I need to find the thing that is best, versus looking for you looking for my people is a better way to go about it. That's why I think the first one is a little more understandable, because like I'm trying to find, young families that are in a state of life as me, and that we can like build family.
Natural community occurs.
Exactly.
Totally.
But if that's the closest geographical parish, there's a preference there. So I started saying this, and then I stopped saying it. That happens. Podcaster brain. So we live in the geographical boundaries. We now live like 5 minutes around the corner from my parish. And so we live in a neighborhood now. We lived in an apartment building before. In a neighborhood, you're more likely to meet the people around you because your kids are out and playing. And my wife has met like 2 or 3 of the surrounding neighbors. And turns out one of them used to be Catholic. One of them wants to be Catholic. And one of them's kind of on the fence looking for a religion in general. And she's invited all 3 of them to mass. And it's easier to invite them to around the corner rather than 30 minutes away. So by going to your parish, like you have this strategic advantage of being able to invite someone to something that's close. And when you church hop, or when you commute, which is I guess different than church hopping, when you do a commuter parish, you're giving up that opportunity, or you're making it harder. And so you do have to weigh that in your cost benefit analysis. I'm supposed to evangelize the people around me. I do not go to the parish these people would go to. Does the need outweigh the benefit? And in many cases, I'm sure it does, but like in a lot of cases, it also doesn't. That's what I would say. This is really in the weeds, like in terms of.
But that's the fun of it. That's why I like this, because
yeah,
I live in the weeds.
I'm a weed guy.
I'm a pastor.
That's the headline.
Yeah.
I know it's a title of the YouTube video.
Definitely the main takeaway.
Patrick's
Yeah,
like,
for
I'm
sure.
a weed guy.
But take like, all right, now there's that person who says, I prefer mass the way that it's celebrated at this place. So I'm gonna go there, and ignore the parish that I'm at. And here's where I think we kind of bump into some of the like the real concrete challenges that people face at certain parishes. Even just the fact that I said the way they celebrate the liturgy at this
Yes.
place, that could mean anything, right? That could mean I like them because they do clown masses. I like them because they only do the Latin mass, traditional Latin
Yes.
mass, and everything's in Gregorian chant, and everything in between, right? But there is a certain place where you have to say, all right, what's the line? So clown masses, I think, are always out.
Yes.
That's always out of bounds,
Mhm.
and that's the kind of parish that should always be just ignored.
We're taking really good stances today. One,
Yeah,
weed,
well-
one weed guy. Two, no clown
No clowns.
masses. Okay.
Type of guy who likes weed but not clowns. That's the
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Actually, I get it.
A very unique kind of guy.
You bring up a good point though, is that like the two types of people that this kind of criticism of church hopping apply to, in my experience, are super trads and super boomers. Like the two types of commuter parishes that exist are TLM parishes that's very niche. And also there is a commuter parish in my diocese where the priest has specifically said, I'm not trying to reach the people in my neighborhood. I'm not trying to reach the people in my parish boundary. I'm trying to reach the people that go to Margaritaville and like do bingo. Like I'm trying to reach the 1970s boomers. I have made a mass that is for them. And then people commute all the way up there to go to his mass, and all the people in the neighborhood that are under the age of 60, they go to the basilica down the road because that's, and it's like, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. I'm kind of off on that, but the criticism cuts both ways. And it's funny because I think more traditionally minded Catholics assumed that I was only talking to them because in their experience, they're leaving a less reverent liturgy to go to a more reverent one. But they have to recognize that there is a strong contingent of Catholics of a certain age who are leaving more traditional liturgies to attend less traditional ones. And I would say that that latter group is more wrong than the other group. Like going to a church because the liturgy is more reverently celebrated is different than saying I go to this one because I like it more. Because in the latter case of I like it more, again, it's about me and my preferences. Whereas in the former case of I'm going to it because it's celebrated more correctly, you're going to it because it is a legitimate expression of the liturgical life of the church. And there is a certain breaking point. Everyone has their own breaking point of like, this is how much irreverence I can handle. Like I've been to parishes where it's like, the music is atrocious. And I have more of a tolerance for that than I do for like bad homilies, like openly heretical homilies or openly misleading homilies or, certain homily, I have less of a tolerance for the homily than the music. Some people are the opposite. They're like, I don't even, there's a homily during mass. Like I didn't even know there was one.
Right.
And they're they can't stand it when 1970s hymns are sung at all. And so everyone has their own breaking point, but I think it's important to like examine yourself and make sure that what is the motivation for me choosing this thing? Is it because I genuinely believe that this is a better expression of the liturgical life of the church, which is why a lot of people attend the TLM, and I don't begrudge anyone that. I totally understand that. That's why the Diocese of Pittsburgh has a particular parish, and that's another thing that people didn't bring up, is that there are such things as personal parishes, where it is established for the purpose of serving a specific niche community that is from all over the diocese, because those people are too far and spread apart. In Pittsburgh, there are two. One is a traditional Latin Mass parish, and the other one is a Black parish. So those are the two personal parishes they have in Pittsburgh. And so you can see something like that being established in a diocese for that purpose. But again, it's not about the preference; it's about the people. Like these people are better served by this community, and so we need to bring them all together because we don't want them to lose their specific cultural identity. Do the same thing with like Brazilian parish. Like ethnic parishes are very common, in Pittsburgh at least. And so that's good. And so it's not a hard and fast rule where parishes are always territorial, because canon law says that a parish is a stable community of the faithful. Stable community is more important than territory, because it's a stable community that's typically tied to a territory, but not always. And so that's I think putting the people first when you're making that decision is important. And that's my main, that was the main thing the article was trying to achieve, was like focus on the people, focus on that as opposed to focusing on the self. If you continue to live in that world, it can start to warp your understanding of what the church is. And it's like, what can the church do for me is a bad mindset to be in.
Yeah, it's a misleading approach. It'll lead to a lot of errors.
It's a megachurch mindset, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
elaborate on that.
So we have a huge megachurch in my hometown. We have this concert venue that is smaller than the megachurch. Like, this concert venue where Jerry Seinfeld performed once is like massive, and the megachurch down the road is bigger. So it holds like 3,000 people in it, and that's not including standing room. And it was packed to the gills in the 2020s. Now, in 2020. Now, COVID hit it a little bit, but what really killed it, it was 10,000 people on a weekend going to this church. Crazy numbers. But after the lead pastor died, it was cut in half. And that's just how it goes, because now the product is different, because this guy, the main product was the preaching. And it was cut in half. You know, some people must have been there for the music, so they stuck around because the music was the same. But imagine they changed the music. Okay, now you're going to cut the congregation in half again, because they're there for a product. And I say that with like very little judgment in my voice, because I understand that I come from like Catholic speaking, and like when you're a speaker, you're like kind of a half missionary, half entertainer. You know, they don't pick the guy that's the smartest to do the Steubenville talks. They pick the guy that's the most entertaining, and that's fine, because you're creating a conference that you're selling tickets for. So you have to have that kind of product market in mind. So I don't begrudge that. Like, it's not wrong to create something that is a product. However, it is wrong if that's the primary form of worship. You're losing something by your primary method of encountering God being something that was designed, like economically designed, you know, like produced in a focus group. And so I think the mindset of I'm going to go where I'm fed is the megachurch mindset. This is what Rick Warren did when he went to Saddleback Valley. And I tell this story in my book, Save Your Parish, SaveYourParish.com. I tell this story in the book where Rick Warren, when he was starting his church in Saddleback Valley, first what he did was he wanted to start a church. So that was it. He wasn't living in California.
Who's Rick Warren?
Oh, Rick Warren?
Oh.
Rick Warren is
he's
like
a famous megachurch pastor.
Yeah, he's a megachurch pastor. He's one of like the original guys who did it. He wrote a book called Purpose Driven Church that every evangelical pastor probably has on his bookshelf. It's like the blueprint for how to build a megachurch. And he wasn't the first megachurch. I think Willow Creek was one of the first megachurches, but Rick Warren's Saddleback Church is kind of the gold standard of megachurches. It's got like 30,000 members around the country. Now, compared to us, that's not big, but for one denomination, one congregation, that's pretty big. So he was living somewhere in America, and he was like, okay, I want to build a church somewhere. He had no preference for place. So this is not a missionary mindset at all. A missionary is like, I'm going to Molokai, and I'm going to live there, you know? Right, I have a heart for these people. So he tried to find the place that was the most economically growing. Okay? Genius idea. I'm going to find the place that has the highest climbing property values, and I'm going to move there and start a church. Great idea. In a certain sense. And so he's
they
like,
need Jesus too. You know?
Yeah, right. Hopefully. And so he's like, I'm going to go there. And he went door to door, and he asked people, what do you go to church? Yes, no. What do you want in a church? Like, what would make you go to church? And he built an avatar, which is a marketing thing. You build, like, you speak to one kind of person, and you make your product specifically for that person. He named him Saddleback Sam. They had a picture of this guy, you know, middle class.
No relation, by the way.
No relation to Father Sam. But Saddleback Sam kind of became this like mascot for the parish, and it was like everything that they did was designed for this guy, this upwardly mobile, middle class guy in his 40s, you know, has a nice job, nice car, latest gadgets, and they built a church for that guy. And they blew up. They, of course, succeeded because they built a church for the kind of guy that they were going after, and they got that guy in the door. Like, obviously they did.
Yeah.
But a Catholic parish...
It was basically customer acquisition.
Absolutely. And it was
which is dangerous, to say the least.
Yeah, it's dangerous. It's like it's business. It's how you start a business, applied to a church, which is like
it's why some people give the church a bad rep. That exact thing is why
I'm trying to go easy on him
because
is
in it for the money.
I'm trying to go easy on him because I don't want to like dunk on him, but it is really easy to dunk on, especially in hindsight of like, hey, why did you do that? Like that's kind of weird, right? But anyway, so his book, Purpose Driven Church, was read by a guy named Father Michael White, who wrote a book called Rebuilt, which is basically Purpose Driven Church applied to a Catholic parish. And if you go to his church in Timonium, Maryland, it looks like a megachurch. It just is a megachurch. And the megachurch strategy is, we build something that is the most attractive kind of thing. We're trying to just grow this thing. So we're going to build something and attract people to it. But the Catholic approach is the opposite. The Catholic approach, the church goes to a particularly pre-existing community. So we go to a place. Think about how we evangelize the Americas. We go to a place and we evangelize the Iroquois and they cut off our thumbs, right? Fine. We go to a place and we build on top of pre-existing communities and we build a church using those people. Like those people become the living stones of the parish. And that is who the parish is built out of, is these people. And now we are about, 100, 200 years removed from those, 400 years removed from those first missionary efforts, and then 200 years removed from those first parishes. And so we've kind of lost that vision. And we've been so influenced by evangelical Christianity. I don't think we realize how influenced by evangelical Christianity we are. Like, evangelical Christianity is equal to Catholics in terms of influence in America. Like, we're 1-to-1. There's 22% of Catholics, 22% of the country is Catholic, 25% is evangelical. We are like evangelical Protestant in our bones. Like, that's what American Christianity is. And so it's easy for us to take on the way they understand church of, we're going to build this thing that attracts the most amount of people, and the more people you have in your church, the better your church is, because the better it is at doing what Christ did, which is bring in people, like bring in butts and seats. But we need to have the opposite approach, because we know that our commission is to go preach the gospel to all nations. And so each parish that's established is a small like carve out of that mission for go make disciples of Pittsburgh. And then the parish is go make disciples of Robinson Township, right? Like that's an even smaller microcosm of the diocese. And so if you're in that parish and you are a Catholic, you are a member of that parish and therefore a member of that commission. And so you do have a particular responsibility to the people of your parish, Catholic or not, in the same way that you have a responsibility to your family, but to a lesser degree and in proportionate to your responsibilities to your family, obviously. But like the next step up, your family, your neighborhood, your parish, like you have a responsibility to the widow and the orphan that live down the road from you. And if you don't go to the same church, how are you going to meet them? That's where it starts. That's where leaving your geographical boundary starts to become a problem. And this was brought up on the pillar, this specific point. I didn't bring this up in my article, so I got to credit JD with that. But it's like, you have a responsibility to the widow and the orphan nearby. And so how are you going to meet them? And so so if you go to another parish, you have to figure out how to do that still. Like if you go to a different place on Sunday, you still have that responsibility. You don't get to be like, well, we're going to go somewhere else. And it's also a danger to pastors. Like if you have pastors listening, I would be cautious in trying to create like a destination parish, because it can really skew your view of how you're doing at your parish. Like you as a pastor have been given particular care of souls of the parish, and that's not just the Catholics in the parish, but it is also the people, like the people writ large of the boundary. And so if you have this booming parish, but everyone's driving from Father O'Leary down the street and Father McDonough down the road, it's like you're taking care of their people, and your parish is so big that you don't realize that you're not doing your job.
Totally.
Yeah.
Not to
There's
tell
So
you what you're doing
as a
totally
pastor, that's a no, but as a pastor, that's a real serious concern.
Yeah.
Like the combination of like you described the megachurch where the lead pastor retires or dies or leaves, whatever it is, and suddenly that congregation's cut in half. I mean, there's a huge fear, I think, for a lot of pastors. I'd at least confess that as my own fear that like if I get transferred from my parish, does that hurt the parish because there's a cult of personality? Like, I hope
Yeah.
there's not a cult of personality. I hope that people aren't coming to my parish because of me. I hope they're coming because they find Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that sometimes they're coming because of me. I also know that there's people who have left the parish because of me. Right?
That, you can rest easy
So,
knowing
like,
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like every parish is going to have a certain number of refugees that come from other parishes, right? Like, I don't like the way that Father A, B, or C over here does things. Father Bob at this church was mean to me. Father Joe at this church, he just gets too political, and Father Jim at this church he's too rigid or he's too much of a rigorist or something. So I'm going to come to this parish. And then on the other hand, like I've had people who have come to my parish for that purpose. I've also had people tell me that they've left the parish because they don't like the way that I say mass, because they think I'm too conservative, because they don't like that we use Latin sometimes. I've gotten all of that, and they've told my big thing is, are you still going to mass?
Yes.
Really, all I care about is that you still go to mass. If you decide that you don't like me and you want to leave the parish, I can get over myself.
Yeah.
I'm not that proud. Like, please go away. That's okay. And sometimes it's like, please go to another parish instead of staying here and
There's such a
bothering
thing
me.
as addition by subtraction, in my experience.
Yeah. But that's me also being a little bit of an escape artist. Like, I just don't want to have to deal with this problem. I don't want to have to take criticism.
One
It's
less
like,
email
I
in the
recognize,
inbox is nice, That's...
Yeah, exactly. Now I realize that those can be concerns and everything. So like for a pastor to want to bring people in and to feel like we have to advertise like we offer these special services, I think that is a dangerous place for us to stand. I read Rebuilt, and I was interested in the idea of like how we can kind of create that environment where people want to be there. I like that idea. Like I want people to want to be here, and I want people to feel like they have an opportunity to connect at a deeper level. But I also read some of the stuff that they do in Rebuilt, and I went, that's not the right way.
No.
Like we're going to do a light show basically to focus people's attention in a different direction at different times. I'm like, no, mass is mass.
Mass is
Say
mass.
mass. Yeah, exactly.
The Incredibles meme.
It's
Mass
just
is
me
mass.
being the Incredibles. Exactly. Mass is mass, and that's it. Just say mass. It's not that difficult,
you
Father.
don't gotta reinvent
Why are
the
we
wheel.
like messing with lights and everything?
And the thing, the two big books, like if you go on the Amazon charts and you look up church growth and you sort by Catholic, you'll find two big ones. You'll find you'll find Rebuilt, and you'll find Divine Renovation. And I like Divine Renovation a lot. Divine Renovation is a lot of like principles, and it's very heady. Like here are the here's neo-Gnosticism is a problem in the church, and it's like it's a lot of stuff like that. But Rebuilt, I mean, I don't know how many Rebuilt parishes there are. The book has been out for 20 years. What has become of that movement? Like, what has it worked? I know every priest has read Rebuilt. How many have implemented it, and how many have it worked? And the reason why it doesn't work is because it only works for Saddleback Valley, Timonium, Maryland places. It works for places that are wealthy suburbs of large metropolitan areas that have upwardly mobile middle class parishioners. That's it. It doesn't work for, St. Joseph's Midtown. It doesn't work for St. Isidore the Farmer in Imperial, Pennsylvania. It doesn't work because they don't have the money, they don't have the staff, they don't have the people. And they deserve a good parish too. They don't have the deacons to set up, they don't have the people to set up a homily team where they do speaker series based on the lectionary of them. They don't have the time to create graphics and do a live stream and all this stuff, even though we were all forced to become Twitch streamers for a year and a half during COVID for some reason. It was a weird time. It was great for me as a youth minister working in churches during COVID. I was immediately forced to become a live stream director for my church. Like, here's how to set up a stream key in OBS. It was weird time. So, but like I haven't seen the fruit from that. I have seen more fruit from Divine Renovation. Divine Renovation falls into a similar trap where it's like, this program worked at our church and it'll work at your church too. Do Alpha. Like he loves Alpha because that was
Right.
his, but he also has other advantages too, where he is a very charismatic guy and he had a very, he was very headstrong and he was willing to shut down the Monday night card game. Like he was willing to do all that. And it's a top-down renovation of the parish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. But what if you're just in the pews? Like you can't just hand your pastor Divine Renovation and expect something to happen. You need something that you can do on your own. And so that's what I put together based on my experience of doing that at multiple parishes across the country, is like, all right, let's see what the people can do on their own and how they can cause the parish to thrive, because the parish really is the people. Like the activities of the people is what makes the parish. And so Father can't do Divine Renovation without buy-in. So why not just skip to the buy-in? And if he wants to do Divine Renovation, he can. If he wants to do Rebuilt, I would say turn back now. But it's fine. I'm try not to be too hard on Rebuilt. Like if you can do it, fine. I would say like don't do the mass is the mass. But anyway.
Yeah. So there's you're saying a lot of great stuff.
It's not all organized, so I apologize for that. Yeah.
That's okay. You got me thinking about a lot of things too, right?
We're usually not that organized, so
that's why the show is called The Tangent, not because we like to go on tangents, but because we struggle to stay organized.
Yeah.
Tangents are inevitable. Okay. My turn to try and grab lots of different ideas. Thinking about the evangelical influence on the Catholic Church in America. In the midst of your comment, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize Seek was a mega church."
It is, it is.
I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
And again, it's not bad,
right? And it works,
yeah.
And it works for what it is. And so the primary critique there is that this isn't worship, in certainly not in its purest form, and as such, we shouldn't treat it that way.
Yes.
But nonetheless, it's got a purpose, and so like I guess. Considering that, right, you can take the ideas, because that seems to be from Rebuilt, if I'm tracking the books correctly, that I haven't read either of them, right? It's like, well, you can implement things from Rebuilt just in a certain scenario, but not applied to the Mass, hence the Mass is Mass, okay?
And you'll notice what Seek does. Like, if you go to Mass at Seek, the light show is done.
Right.
It's normal. The music is different. The band is off to the side. It's not as bandy of a band. It's... Right. They are really good at making this
not as bandy of a band.
It's not as drum kit, and they do a really good job of separating the sacred from the profane in the broad sense.
Yes, totally. But this is also like this idea of evangelical Christianity's influence over the Catholic Church in America is like a really broad idea, and is often a critique levied at the Second Vatican Council and its implementation. And specifically, like people bring it up in the context of like, you removed so much statuary, and like, hey, Marian devotion was out of vogue for like 45 years there, or something like that. Maybe that's too long, but that's idea.
Right, yeah.
And since you've already like opened my eyes to one element of evangelical Christianity's influence over the Catholic Church in America, what a sentence. I was curious if there were any other ideas that came to mind. Like, I know, knowing that that's actually a tangent. And I promise we'll talk about your book again. But you know what I mean? Is there something else there?
Yeah, so the concept of people being saved as individuals versus as families or as corporately is very evangelical. If you think about how an evangelical church works, you walk in as a family and you are sorted. You are sorted into age
what does
groups.
that mean?
Like you're like the kid, the preschool, the nursery, the kid, children's church, the middle schoolers, the teens, and the grown-ups. And the Bible studies are men's Bible studies and women's Bible studies. The family is atomized to its basic components. And we often imitate that in the church, right? Now, there's a place for all of those things. There are.
Right, sure.
However,
fraternity amongst men is good.
Yes, yeah. You've heard it here first. However, we do a very bad job at having things for families. And again, the Catholic Church's strategy. This is back to the book, though. I'll bring it back to the book. You don't have to worry.
No, that's okay. Yeah,
The we're supposed to build on top of communities that already exist. That's the Catholic way. And the strongest community that exists is the family. The strongest foundation for a parish is the family unit. And so in the book, I kind of hint at this. I don't say it outright, but it's like if you're just a single person reading this book, it's going to be harder for you to implement this than if you are a family, because people look at you and they know that you could be gone next week. Like that's just how single life is. But if you're a family, people know you're kind of in it for the long haul. You're dedicated to the future of the congregation. You have a vested interest in the future. It's easier for you to make change because you're a family, and it's also easier for you to you can also make a stronger impact. So like two families working together is stronger than one by themselves, and then three, it's not just a tripled effort; it's like a sextupled effort. It's like multiplied by 4 or 5 times those families working together. I'll give an example. So like, this is a bad example for the family example, but it'll connect. So when I was in youth group in high school, my parish, we did not kneel after the Agnus Dei at my parish for some reason. It was like we never did it. I think one pastor was like, "Oh, most of our people are elderly, so we're not going to make them kneel." All right, whatever. And so we didn't kneel after the Agnus Dei at my parish until my youth group, who all sat together at mass on Sunday. We started going to these other churches for like conferences. We go to the conference, we're like, "Why is everybody kneeling?" "Oh, I guess we're kneeling." And then we realized you were supposed to, and so we all started doing it. And when 5 rows of teens do it, then everybody who's around does it too. And then people start to notice, oh, people are kneeling. So over time, the dominoes kind of went down, where like half of the parish was kneeling after the Agnus Dei and the other half wasn't. And eventually the priest was like, "All right, guys, we're just doing this." And then it was kind of taken by the whole parish. Mm-hmm. This is how people working together can make and affect change. Like 5 families take up eventually 5 pews. You know what I mean? It's like, so the reverence, if this area is not talking and is praying silently before mass, guess what the areas around it are going to do too. And eventually that'll start to grow and change. Like a small group of people a little bit of leaven makes the whole loaf rise. You are the salt of the earth, the light of the world, right? Like this is what Christ told us. There's only a few of you, but you can make a big difference, is like part of the gospel. And so like, if it's true of the world, why is it not also true of the parish? And so that's, if you have a family, you have a stronger impact at the parish than you think, which is why I was so disheartened when people were talking about how, "Oh, I'm leaving because of my family." It's like, well, your family is the strongest asset that you have to changing your parish. It's because here's 5 little ones that look up to you. And if you kneel to receive communion, guess what they're going to do? You know what I mean? Like my son thinks that's how you receive communion, even though 98% of our parish doesn't. He sees Dad do it and Mr. Zach do it. And so that's what he's going to do, you know? And so those things catch on over time. Or they don't.
Just, your son is correct. That's how you receive communion. Just tell him I said so.
I will.
Your
It's
son
so cute.
is correct.
He's 3. He walks up like this, and then he kneels, even though he's not receiving communion. And then he gets up and walks away with me. It's really cute.
It's great. I love it. Okay, so right there, you've hit something that I think it's a tension point, right? And it's a tension point because it's like, what do we do in the concrete? I've experienced this in different conversations that I have with people. So, like, I know people who moved to a different town and left the parish, where I am. We have a lot of families, and they showed up at their new parish feeling like they're the only family.
Yeah.
And they've made a decision that they're going to stick it out, that they're going to do it, but they're finding that it's not always easy at Mass itself, because they're often one of the only families there. They're slowly starting to get to know some of the other families that are showing up. But in the early days, it was like, we're the only ones. And so they were tempted to find another parish close by that had more more families. They've made a decision, and I think it's a good one. On the other hand, I've had people who, like, they have a family, they go to a parish, and they just said, there's nothing here for my family,
Mhm.
and I need to do something that's going to build my family up, and I need that support also. There's a parish, it's one parish over within the same town. It's not it's like I'm
Yeah,
not
not a
leaving
commuter. Yeah,
the community. I'm just going one parish over from like maybe my neighborhood. I'm going a little bit farther away. In my diocese, we have this very unique characteristic, which is you can't drive for more than 15 minutes without getting to another Catholic church.
that's awesome. Yeah,
It's pretty wild. Yeah, like there's no more than 15-minute drives between each different church.
ours are weird.
So
They're like stacked because we're a very skinny coastal county, and so all of our parishes are 15 minutes on top of each other. So like the next parish is another 15 minutes away. There's no like you can't drive 15 minutes without getting to another parish, but it's like it's one or that one or this one. There's three. And then if you want to go to another one, it's like an hour, Anyway.
yeah. No, so this is like within the same town. I went to this place and there's no families. There's nothing for families. We have a parish that closed recently here in my town, and a few years ago, like we saw the writing on the wall because they had decided they could no longer afford to have a DRE, and so they stopped offering religious ed, and the pastor just told people, well, go over to Father Sam's parish, go to this parish. And so we got all these families.
Yeah.
Whatever families they had with kids came to me. Not exclusively, they went to some other parishes as well, but like a whole bunch of them came here. And then the parish eventually had no families and no babies being baptized, and then there's no life. And real quick, it was evident that this parish isn't going to survive. Now, that was the pastor making a decision, not people saying, I won't stay at this parish. I think there are people who would have, but there was nothing for them.
Yeah.
We need something for our kids, so we need to go someplace that can offer that. It's a hard situation, right? Like,
yeah, and that's like I don't want to say, and I think that's an instance of like, okay, it's going to be harder for me to evangelize my community if I'm going to another parish, but like I think the benefit there outweighs the cost. And that's like, those are nuances I didn't get into in the article, just because I try to keep my Substack articles to like 500 words, like try to keep them short. But like
space limitations are a real thing, and that's okay.
Like, why did you talk about this? Like, well, you could also write a Substack article if you want to, and people did. But it's like, yeah, there's real tangible like consequences to what the pastor does that might make it necessary for you to leave. But it's like staying is such a good thing that it should be like the default until it becomes obvious you have to go. It's kind of like moving in general. It's like if I need to, or changing jobs, right? There needs to be a real problem for me to want to change my job, because it even if it stays in town, it still uproots my family's routine. It makes it, there's an operational drag on changing, and like I'm less focused at home. Like there needs to be serious reasons to change jobs. I would say it's the same thing with parishes, but to a greater a greater degree. It's like it's almost like there needs to be a real reason to like change. I mean, change families is like a strange thing to say, but it's like that's almost what you're doing. It's like a parish is a family of families. Now,
let me tell you that's one of the hardest things as a priest, when you realize that you're gonna move. The whole idea is you're the father of the family, and then suddenly you know that you can get transferred. It's like, okay, so the analogy falls apart there, because that's not what this is, and I'm not
like the last pastor we had of my parish was pastor until the day he died, which was crazy.
Wow,
which is a blessing.
Yeah.
He was assigned to us in 2001 and died in 2021. He was pastor for 20 years, and that's like extremely rare. Whereas like in Pittsburgh, it was the opposite. It was like a pastor, even if you were told you're going to be here for a decade, that guy that was told that was made the vicar of the diocese like within 3 years. It's like sorry, we need you here. Like we have a priest shortage, and so it is hard, but it's like there's a poverty to that, right? Ideally, you are the cure of ours, and you're there until you die, and this is your people, and you are like married to this parish. But the fact is, we don't live in an ideal world, and that is real. And it's like, okay, unfortunately, I wish we were staying here, but we can't. All right, Substack articles notwithstanding, this is what we have to do. And the Substack article author would say, yeah, cool, I get it. The Substack article author will not wag his finger and say, you should stay at a parish that has no CCD because of like some weird para-nostalgia, like false nostalgia of like the neighborhood churches of the North Hills of Pittsburgh. You know, it's like that's not what we're trying to do. But what I would say though is like there is catechesis that can be done, especially if you're in a situation where, like, imagine if there's no other parish to go to. You can't get it anywhere else. Like the pastor said, sorry, we can't afford a DRE, so there's no more CCD forever, and you're in the middle of nowhere. It's like there are things that you can do as families getting together, and educating your children. It's not as hard as you think, you know? I mean, like CCD has the kids for an hour a week. You know, you have your kids for longer than that. You can make more of a dent than you think in your kids' faith formation. More is caught than taught. You know, we all know that.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that CCD, I mean, so I'm speaking as a former catechist. I wasn't able to do it this year, but several years prior, you know. And I will just share my experience as a catechist, which is like it's not all it's cracked up to be anyway, because you can't so the first thing is it's never one-on-one, not really, you know. There are the occasions, but like 95% of the time, you know, if not higher, right? You're speaking to a group of like 15 children. And unfortunately, now admittedly, I can't speak broadly for every parish. I could speak from my personal experience. Like, there's a whole bunch of kids that are like incredibly skeptical. You know, like, I would say that there was a good portion of my time as a catechist that I spent as an apologist. Yeah. You know, and the thing is, like, there is some benefit for the other kids when that happens. And I was like genuinely very grateful when a kid was willing to say to me, and this actually happened. I said to them, I was like, any question? Do you have any question? It can be what we talked about. It could be about literally anything else. Dangerous. It does not matter. You know? And the kid
I always say any
me,
other questions except for math questions. I don't do math.
Yeah. And the kid said to me, he said, I think we were talking through Genesis, and he said, something along, I'm paraphrasing, something, you know, my every week I go to school, and my science teacher teaches me the opposite of this. Who should I believe? And it was like, I was like, thank you for being honest with me.
Great.
You know? And like, because basically, like, I think it specifically, he might have also added like evolution. What do I do? You know? And like, there's the answer of like, read Genesis and like, how many days are there? When did he create the sun and the moon? Are the days literal? No. Like, you know, like can't measure days when the sun hasn't been created yet, you know? So like, you know, not 24 hours, but like, but like it opened a door, you know? But I guess digression aside, the point is that like, I can do substantially more with my children, you know? My oldest is younger than yours. My oldest is younger than yours. I don't know if I said that correctly, but that's what I meant. He's 2.5. Yeah. So the point is that like he's not asking me questions about Genesis yet. You know, like, you know, but like I can teach him substantially more, and further. And Father Sam, I'll actually I'll ask you this, which is, I'm the primary educator of my family, and so that means that you're here to support me.
That's right.
I don't know if that's the correct way to articulate that. But the idea that CCD is the replacement for my education of my children is itself the mistake. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, no, I mean, look, if we're going to renew parish life, a huge thing that we have to do is renew family life. And if we're going to renew family life, a huge part that we have to do is teach parents and remind them of how to be the first educators. And then we have to make it possible for them to actually be those first educators by providing the support that they need, instead of saying that we can take their place. A lot of our instruction, the way that we do it, it comes especially from a model that was like, parents are working. You're in a relatively close-knit community. often where you have children of immigrants. Often the parents are not educated enough to be able to educate their children. So we're going to roll catechesis into the overall educational plan for kids. And therefore, the parents don't have to do it because they can't read the catechism anyway.
Yeah.
They don't have the level of education anyway. Well, what that's done, though, is we've perpetuated sort of the idea that like they can't teach, that they don't know anything. Like my parents sent me and my brother to Catholic school because my parents didn't feel that they were equipped enough to teach my brother and I the faith. My parents both have college degrees, graduate degrees. Like they are smart humans.
Yeah.
They're capable of doing these things, and I'm sure my parents will be glad that I said that they're smart humans. It only took me 42 years, but they're extremely capable, right? But the feeling. And I don't think that they were wrong to have this feeling. In fact, I'm very grateful they sent me to Catholic school because it was a life-changing experience for me. But I think there's a feeling generally out there. I don't know enough. I couldn't possibly teach this. But Bishop Caggiano says this all the time, that catechesis, the real audience for catechesis is adults.
Absolutely.
The true audience is adults. What we're doing for children is we're forming them in the faith. We're teaching them to live the faith. We want to form them in virtue. We want to form them in prayer. If they don't have every single answer from the Baltimore Catechism memorized, that's actually less important, even though I think the Baltimore Catechism does something very unique, which is it catechizes compared to a lot of our other resources.
Yes.
Right? But if we're gonna
And the
do
Catechism
this,
of the Catholic Church, as it stands now, was not meant to be a textbook for catechumens. By the way,
right?
Like it was meant to be a
Right.
formation tool for catechists to make their own catechisms, which we haven't done, except for the UCAT,
Right.
which we did. That one's cool.
Right.
Anyway,
But then we have to equip parents so that they can do this. So here's where I think we get into something. All right. Any pastor you talk to, and Patrick, I'm sure you've come across this yourself. Any pastor that you talk to is going to have learned at some point that when people come to him and say, Father, the parish should do this or the church should have this, that at first when you're a pastor, and I'm saying this after 11 years, at first you're like, yeah, sure, that's a great idea. And you like dig in and you start doing it as the pastor. And then you realize this is a terrible thing for me to be doing because now I'm eating up all of my time trying to run this thing that actually is meant to be run by volunteers or is actually meant to be run by somebody else or shouldn't be handled by a staff member. And the minute you say to somebody, because you start to learn, I can't say yes to that. You say, that's a great idea. Would you like to lead that?
Yeah.
And they disappear and you never see them ever again, right? Like this is one of the big complaints that pastors will have. So one part of this would be people sometimes come and are passive consumers of parish life. So they come and they want the homily to be perfect. They want the priest to preach like St. Paul. They want him to be holy like St. John Vianney. They want him to be funny like St. Philip Neri. They want him to walk on water like Jesus. And they want him to be as non-threatening as Therese of Lisieux, right? Like this is what they want.
I love that. Was that off the dome? I like
and then
that.
they find but then they find out that, Father preaches more like John Vianney, who was famously not a very exciting preacher, and that he's instead of like Saint Therese of Lisieux, he's more like Saint Jerome.
I knew you were going Saint Jerome.
Like,
kind of cantankerous.
okay, yeah. Or they just find like, well, I didn't get what I came in expecting to get, and therefore this isn't the right parish for me. On the other hand, you have priests who want people to be the perfectly docile disciples who just go along with whatever the master says, who are looking at Father just saying, Lord, to whom shall we go?
Yeah.
And that's like, we just want to be unchallenged like that. But what we really need is the person who's more like Peter, who's going to say something where our response is more like, get behind me, Satan. I don't want to deal with that. But then you realize you have to, right? Like we need those challenges. So how do we, Patrick, let's talk maybe a little bit about the give and take between priests and laity in this saving of parishes that's needed.
Yeah. I my biggest, like, I've worked with a lot of priests in my day, and the best thing for me was having a I knew that the priest, I knew Father had my back. Like, that was the best thing that Father could give me, was I know that if someone starts complaining, that he and I have a good enough relationship that I can still do what we have already decided is good and we're gonna do, right? Like, that's been really helpful. Um, I think what the church has, the way that the clergy and the lay people should work together is, the church has certain resources and the laity have certain skills, and there needs to be like a teamwork there. And what I mean is, like, the church has more institutional and monetary power, and the layperson has more agility and ingenuity, I think, and more time, I would say, than the pastor. You gotta say mass and hear confession. Like, please keep doing that. You know, like, the best thing you can do for your parish in terms of ROI is like making the liturgy more reverent and catechetical. That's like the best thing you could be doing. And because only you can be doing that. And so, like, if you're running Alpha and you're giving a Wednesday night lecture series, like, you're busy, you know. What the laity needs, like, is like to show that the church supports them in their mission to make disciples. And I'll give an example. One thing that we did was we discovered that our parish needed a third floor ministry, which in Save Your Parish, saveyourparish.com, is an evangelization ministry. There's a framework for the 4 things a parish needs to do, and there's a ground floor, first floor, second floor, and a third floor. And the third floor is evangelization. We decided, okay, our ground through second floor are fine, they're passable. We need to build a third floor immediately, and so that's what we did. And we put together an evangelization team. Like, we lay people were teaching each other how to have conversations at work with their family members, door to door, over the phone, where people would have these evangelical conversations. And now what I realized was people were willing to have conversations with their family, but people weren't having conversations with their coworkers. And so I said, okay, what do we do to encourage people to do that? And so I went to our deacon, who was our business administrator. I said, Deacon, can you earmark $1,000 a month for me in the budget? And he was like, why? And I was like, for alcohol. And he was like, what? And I was like, I'm just messing with you. I was like, for alcohol, coffee, and for food. Here's my idea. And he went with it, which was impressive. So the idea was, we had an evangelization fund, and the evangelization committee and the parish kind of writ large knew that if they invited a friend of theirs out for lunch or dinner or drinks or coffee, and they talked about the faith, that they could bring in their receipt and we would reimburse them for what they spent on dinner. One person brought in their receipt. Obviously, people did it, but only one person brought in their receipt, because it was just like we showed we had skin in the game, and people went out and they took their friend out for coffee and they were like, it's $3. I mean, I could, who really cares? But just showing that we were willing to encourage that behavior was enough to push people over the edge. And so stuff like that, where the parish can kind of put forth its resources. Parish has more money than the average layperson. Doesn't always feel like we have more money, but we do. The church does. And so we can put our money where our mouth is and encourage, in small ways, that sort of thing. I did the same thing with our youth group. I had the girls that want to do a girls' Bible study. I gave them a reloadable Starbucks card, and I had them go to Starbucks with their friends from high school. And as long as you pray and read the Bible together, we'll pay for your Starbucks. And they did it, and it was pretty successful. They reloaded it. At least they reloaded it every month. I don't know. We didn't have a female core team member who could run a Bible study for them, and so I was like, well, can you guys do it? Like, you're smart. And so I gave them the resources and the money they needed. I knew where to find the Bible studies and where to find a $15 Starbucks gift card. They had no job and no knowledge. And so I was able to give them that and empower them to go do their mission. The parish staff needs to understand that they are not missionaries, unfortunately. Like, they are less of a missionary as they are an administrator. The gift of administration is more important than the gift of preaching and the gift of like relational ministry than in a parish office. A parish office, you are the catalyst for the rest of the lay people to go and do their mission. Like, your job is to empower them, say, you have the backing of the church. Go do this. And so that is most true of the priest, who empowers the staff member, who empowers the lay people. If the if the lay person and the staff believes that the whole ministry rests on them, they're gonna get burned out. And when they quit or leave, the ministry goes with them, unfortunately. And that's what happens, especially if you hire a young youth minister who isn't married yet. He's gonna get married, he's gonna have kids, and his life's gonna change, and he's probably gonna leave. That's what happens. It's happened with me. Not much you can do about that. The hired hand. That's what happens. So you gotta empower the people that are stuck at the parish to do the work.
Yeah. How do you help people then to really embrace the idea of planting? Like, I want to, this is the place that I want to do this. I mean, I suppose it's as simple as if you bought a house here, you bought a house in town because you intend to raise your family here. This is the place that you're going to plant. Can you also plant at your parish? So we have people who are willing to live somewhere, but they'll travel to get to Mass, in part because they're like, oh, Mass that's just on Sunday, or it might not be. They might be going to Mass daily, but they'll travel extra distance just to do that. Whatever the reason is, like, are you willing to plant and be invested spiritually in the community here? I don't know if there's a question there. I guess for the sake of that continuity, where it doesn't matter who the pastor is, it doesn't matter who the employees of the parish are. This is the parish, and we are the community, the members of this community. We're keeping the place alive.
Yeah.
We're going to do it.
I think that if I were to try and sum up like the themes of what we've talked about too, it would really be that ownership from the laity of the parish is important, but ownership is intrinsically intertwined with community, which is intrinsically intertwined with location.
Yeah, someone was asking me, like, why do parishes need to be territorially bound? And I was like, well, because people are embodied and they exist in spaces that are local to a place. Like, that's just, it's almost self-evident. Like, if the parish is the people, of course it's territorial, except in special circumstances where the type of person is very naturally spread out and not for some reason local. But like there are specific instances, but in the entire city of Pittsburgh, there's only 2. Most parishes are local because most people live in neighborhoods with people that are like them and unlike them. It's like if your neighborhood, since most parishes aren't one neighborhood, if your parish includes like a super Hispanic neighborhood and a super like waspy neighborhood, I guess not WASC neighborhood, then you're probably going to have things for both of those communities. Like, someone DM'd me the other day. He was like, our parish has a Hispanic ministry, and all of our events are basically Spanish speaking now. And it's like really hard to like have community with people who speak English. How do I start English ministry without sounding racist? And I was like, yeah, no, I hear you. But it's like, no, it's like, we need to recognize, like, okay, well, we have this weird situation where we have like half of the parish speaks Spanish and half of the parish speaks English. So because we're all in one parish, we have to have like an understanding of like, this is for the people who speak English, and like, you're welcome to come, but just like understand that you're kind of in their space. And it's important to draw those lines and like minister to everybody and be okay living with people that are not like you.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing a quote, but it's like, love your neighbor and love your enemy because they're probably the same guy. Like, it's that's community building. One thing I was accused of in the wake of my article was like, oh, just build community, just have a Bible study and everything will be fixed. I was like, build community sounds really simple and fluffy, but that's only because you've never been in a community with people you don't like. Build community only sounds fluffy and easy if if every time you hate someone, you don't talk to them anymore. That sounds fluffy because that's what people think community is. But priests know for a fact community. You've been in seminary for a minute and a half. Community is with people you cannot stand. Yeah. Priests are. A priest friend of mine was kind of trying to point that out. He's like, Patrick, I'm assigned a roommate by a bishop. The bishop is dealing with everything, and the last thing on his mind is, does Father so-and-so get along with Father so-and-so? He doesn't care. I have to live with this guy, and I have to love him.
Right.
I chose everybody that I live with, basically. I guess I didn't choose my kids in a larger sense, but it's like lay people have this luxury of choosing who we're around, and we should kind of like disabuse ourselves of that luxury. Like, we should surround ourselves with people we don't necessarily like, because it makes us better.
Hmm. Hmm. Here's another thing I keep thinking about with regard to community. There's a value to being part of a community that maybe isn't your absolute favorite, and then being also part of a community that's your community by choice.
Yeah.
Um, Part of I got on this kick. I've been reading it's an old book. It's nothing new, but it's The Great Good Place,
Hmm.
about third places in American life.
Oh, nice.
So the idea that you have your first place is your home, your second place is work, and the third place is like it's the coffee shop or the neighborhood bar, or you name the kind of place that you go to and you socialize. Like that's the third place. And I started like trying to apply that to the parish. So the parish is like the family. So that's home. The parish church is like home. And then the second place is like the groups that you might participate in there, or like the work that you do. But then there's the third place, and it's possible for Catholics to find good Catholic community with people who they want to be around who don't necessarily belong to their parish. Or like in a town like where I am, I don't have a school, but neighboring parish does.
Mm.
And so I have a whole bunch of families from my parish who send their kids to school there, but belong to this parish and are very committed to this particular parish community, while also overlapping with people from this other parish community. And then you'll see like there's other places where Catholics are gathering, and the very fact that they're Catholics is the thing that's maybe not the reason that they're gathering, but it's one common thread that they all have. So there's another way that Catholics can interact. I got very excited recently. I met a nice young family, and they happened to live in the same town as very dear friends of mine. And I got to talking with this family, and they were telling me that they live on this one street, and it's the same street that their parish church is on. And as it happens, my friends live on a street the same as their parish church, also just on the opposite side of town. And so I made the introduction. We're actually going to have dinner on Friday. I'm really excited to like go and hang out with these two families. Uh, but I made the introduction, and my friends who are hosting, they said, they should really come to our parish. And I said, well, that would be about the same logic as you guys going to their parish,
Yeah.
because they live on the same street as their church. You live on the same street as your church.
Yeah.
You guys could just wave to each other as you pass
As you
by,
walk
right?
by, yeah.
Like, yeah, it makes more sense for you guys to have your individual, like the parishes that you belong to, plant there, but then to strengthen your sense of being part of a broader community, the fact that you guys can become friends, even if you don't go to church together, it's still like we're Catholic, we belong to the Catholic community that's in this town. As it happens, this town has more than one parish, but we belong to the Catholic community that's here.
How much of this do you think is influenced? Do you think it's like a level of disintegration because we are of the internet age, and like everybody spends more time by themselves than they used to, and like I don't have to be in the same place as you to talk to you, Patrick.
Yeah.
So like I don't know how much of this is like a mindset, that isn't influenced by the evangelical Protestants. It's influenced by like the rise of modern tech.
Yeah, it's like everything algorithms make everything hyper customized.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
COVID every meeting is virtual now. That was like unheard of a decade ago. Even though we had the capability, like Skype existed a decade ago, but no one used it. Even the fact that someone would even say, why does a parish need to be territorial? Like, why does the church you go to matter? Like with what place you live in, is like, to say that 50 years ago would have been just insanity. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Of course, because we occupy space, and the space that is closest to us is typically ours. That's just how it goes. But as we've gotten further, it started long ago. Like the car made it harder. Like, the fact that basically every suburb now is just a subsidiary of the major city it's in. Like League City, Texas is about, a 45-minute drive outside of Houston. A century ago, that city had its own identity. Now it's just Houston. People will say, I'm from Houston. They won't say I'm from League City, even though a century ago, 50 years ago, they would have. Some cities are like that now. Like, some cities are still like that, like Pittsburgh. People in Pittsburgh will be like, I'm from XYZ. People in Boston will be like, I'm from Worcester. I'm not from Boston. There's still some pockets of that. In the South, it's almost completely
Worcester is a
gone.
totally different thing from Boston. Come on.
Yeah, of course. I was in Worcester, and I was like asking someone, I was like, so how long have you lived in Boston? He's like, I don't live in Boston, I live in Worcester. And I was like, I'm in Boston. I don't know where you are. I'm in Boston right now. That's where I'm thinking.
Worcester's its own diocese. It
Is it really?
gets credit.
No
It's
idea.
its own diocese. Yes.
Well,
As a New Englander, I'm going to fight for the distinctive identities of New England cities.
as a Southerner, I go to New England. I'm like driving around. I'm in Pennsylvania now, and I'm like, this is still New England, right? It's not.
Right.
No, I can't.
Because for
no,
me, it's like I drive
can't
7
allow
hours.
that.
I'm still in Florida. You know what I mean? It's kind of the way that people from the actual England look at America. They're like, hey, I'm coming to America. Will I be able to see you? I'm going to California. And you're like, you might as well be in Timbuktu. I'm not near there at all. Anyway,
That's
so
awesome.
this as the country grew out, we developed technologies that made us be able to go faster in shorter amounts of time. That has kind of reached its zenith with like being able to cross the globe in pieces of us crossing the globe in seconds, and that we should recognize as a church that's kind of created a poverty, and it's detached us from the places where we encounter each other and therefore meet God. God, there's a reason why you can't receive the sacrament of confession over Zoom or over a phone. There's a reason, or via mail, like that. It has to be there because God is in the present moment, and He became flesh, and so we encounter Him in the flesh in the present, and that has further reaching ramifications than just not being Gnostic, or receiving the sacrament instead of just like accepting Jesus into my heart. That has ramifications for how we practice the faith and how we the place we go to encounter Christ should be a local place. It should be a place we go to frequently with people we know, because that's part of God saves us corporately. He saves us as a church, and that church is people that we know. It's not just like this abstract union of invisible people.
Yeah. But at the same time, at the risk of blaming everything on technology, let me just be the old man in the room here for a second, because when I was a youngster and I walked in deep snow uphill both ways to go to mass, there's this, the reality is that this attitude has been present longer than just the internet age.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Before we could go online and look at this, it's been present. Like, I grew up at one parish that was actually my neighborhood. Properly speaking, it's my parish. It's the neighborhood that I grew up in. That's where I served mass and everything else. But their school was full and they couldn't take any more students, and so I went to the Catholic school across town, which meant that I was also getting connected over there. When it was time for confirmation, all my friends from school, who I had done essentially all of my faith formation with because I went to a Catholic school with them, they were being confirmed there, and I wanted to be confirmed with them. And that was also the parish, as it happened, that had a youth group, whereas my home parish where I served mass didn't have a youth group. So I started going to this other church across town. I'm a recovering church hopper. I started going to this other church across town because they had stuff that was helpful for me, that I needed. And in fact, if it wasn't for that parish and for the opportunity that I had to do that, I wouldn't be a priest, I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm deeply convinced that like everything that happened there.
Well, God can make good come out of evil. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I think
that's actually the point. Even out of an imperfect situation, God can draw something good. But it does.
Right. Church hopping actually isn't a mortal sin.
Yeah. But it does kind of like it raises this issue of not every parish can do everything. Not every parish can provide and meet every single desire that somebody has. But participating in like the unique and particular ministry, like a youth group, for example, that one parish has, shouldn't discourage somebody from still being part of their proper parish.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right.
We've got
That's
to
a
have
good way
a mentality
form
that
the
says
third
like,
place.
yeah, we've got to have that mentality that says it's okay to participate in things that are happening at this location or where these communities can overlap. But the fact that they overlap doesn't mean that a distinct identity has to be lost.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Now, the big thing that happens though is people will find vast differences on Sunday.
Yes.
All right. You want to hit the third rail and talk liturgy, Patrick?
Oh boy, do we have time?
We can go into it at least a little bit,
Okay.
at least a little bit, right? All right. So people go to mass because they want I'm just going to say it, a more or a less reverent liturgy.
Correct.
They want people who they want a priest who believes that Jesus is present in the Eucharist, or
Very
they
true.
don't want to have to think that Jesus is present in the Eucharist.
Bingo.
Like, frankly, it has to come down to that. Like, either he's there and we're going to behave accordingly.
Yeah.
We're going to be obedient to what the church asks us to do liturgically, or we're not.
Yes.
Is that too fine a point?
I don't think so. I mean, I another article that I wrote that like didn't go as viral as I wanted it to, but it was like the only way to fix the liturgy is just follow the freaking rules. Like can we just follow the, because like the true Novus Ordo has not been tried. Like that sort of attitude is like,
you sound like a college freshman who just learned about communism.
yeah, right, exactly. It's like can we or who just learned about the Second Vatican Council. What the I don't think I've seen very many like Sacrosanctum Concilium masses in my lifetime. I don't think I've seen many at all. One issue is like the churches just aren't even built for it anymore. I mean, even if you wanted a more reverent liturgy at my parish, something would feel missing because it's like the church just doesn't look like it's made for that. You know what I mean? There's something that we can't fix everything overnight. Even the most reverent priest who wants to do everything correctly is still going to have trouble because like there are certain things we just can't fix yet. And so
What's missing physically from the church?
I think
why do you say that?
the orientation. So like, I mean, the fan church, the auditorium style churches, you know, the churches that are built like mega churches used to be before they turned into stadium seating, before they got so big, you know, like the way a lot of these 1960s churches are built, they draw their inspiration not from the cathedrals of old or from the country churches of yesteryear. They draw their inspiration from, you know, Protestant mega churches at the time, like Willow Creek is a big, you know, this big because you can fit more people like this, and more people can hear the sermon, which is the point, you know. And so the purpose of the architecture is to make sure more people can hear the music and the sermon, not so more people can pray. And so our church architecture is a real hindrance to like celebrating the liturgy well. And so we have to look at that as lay people who want more reverent liturgy and say, this is going to take more time than we think. Like this is going to take, it's a folly to think that the tradition that we lost in a year can be recovered in a year. Tradition is handed on, and we have generations of people that didn't get it. And so we need to recover it slowly because that's how something is strong and resilient and won't, like, it'll be harder to break it. It'll take a more cataclysmic thing to break it. That's how tradition grows. And then someone might burn it to the ground, and then you just do it again. Like this is, you know, these monks that would deal with Viking raids on the coast of Ireland, you know, they would like build the monastery, and then, you know, freaking Olaf and his homies would come and they would like burn everything down, and they'd take all the corn and stuff, and then they'd be like, okay, I guess that was the Lord's will. He's punishing
Let's
us,
do it again.
Reproaching us for our many sins. They would just build it again. That's what we have to do. We have to have, everyone wants a monk mindset, but no one wants to be raided by the freaking Norwegians. You know what I mean? Like we want the monk mindset without the monk reality, handwriting the Bible for days at a time. We got to rebuild the church slowly, and then, you know, if it's burned to the ground again, like let's say Father leaves and he hates everything, and the DRE's wife shuts down your. I told that story off podcast, so it doesn't really make sense. If the DRE shuts everything down, fine, do it again. Like this,
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis de Montfort built a big shrine, and the bishop told him to tear it down, and he was like, I'll do it. And everyone was like, why don't you fight him on it? He's like, because this is the Lord's will. So I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
That's radical sanctity, and it sounds uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, you're telling me I need to have heroic virtue? It was like, I'm telling you, take up your cross and follow him. I don't want to like put it on you. I don't want to tell you what that cross is, but I do want you to do it because that's what Jesus is asking you to do.
But I think if you're right that if we can't fix the architectural problems, that's a longer term process that requires money, architects, people who know how to build churches correctly. Like it's a big project. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a starting point that we can all
Correct.
adopt, and that's just say mass according to the way that it's supposed to be said.
Yeah. Well, you can adopt that. I can't.
Right. Well, this is what I mean. Like for priests, like what can we do so that if I know that the guy at the parish next to me and the guy 2 parishes over and at all the parishes basically in this area that we actually are all following
We're
the
doing
rubrics.
This, yeah.
There might be a difference in quality of music according to the particular parish that you're at, the talent of your music ministers and everything. Like that can vary from place to place. There's going to be a difference in the quality of preaching because some guys are better at preaching than other guys are. It doesn't really, in that sense, it doesn't matter. It's just a reality. Some priests give good homilies, some priests don't. We just leave it at that. But if every place you go, you know that the priests are going to say the same words, and that they're going to do so with reverence for the prayers that they're saying, that has a leveling effect so that I don't notice the big differences at all these different places. The other thing I think that needs to happen, and I'm going to be really careful how I say this, the entire vault of OCP liturgical music just needs to fall into a sinkhole along with all of the computer data that it's stored on.
Yes.
Big sinkhole, destroyed. I don't want humans to be harmed in this, and so I want no harm to come to the artists or to the people who publish it or to the good people who work there, but basically everything from OCP, it has to go. That's like the next big step. I don't know how to do that.
I won't shed a tear. Oh man, yeah.
Bad liturgical music is like that's a
I
whole
heard
thing.
Lord of the
Matt
Dance.
is a great musician.
I heard Lord of the Dance in the year 2022. That was crazy.
No,
that was. I was like, well, that we're still doing this? I had no idea.
Where?
But I was talking to the music minister at my parish, and he's a very traditionally minded guy. Does amazing like Schola mass, and sometimes he still does Table of Plenty. I'm like, dude, what's going on? And he's like, Pat, you gotta pick your battles, and I won the Lord of the Dance battle, and I'll lose the Be Not Afraid battle, and so I can win the Agnus Dei battle and the Latin responses battle. Like that.
Yeah,
that's what we got to do because we're in a community.
That's fair,
and we have to deal with political issues in the music, right? Like, but it's like, hey, this is non-negotiable. We cannot take a break in the middle of mass for the kids to sing a song about First Communion. We can't do that.
Right.
Sorry, I looked at the book. It's not in there. So we can't do that. We can do this though. It's
that's the kind of thing I had to gradually like say, okay, we're going to slowly phase that out. And then there were other things where I sat down with my organist who's totally on my side, which is also phenomenal, and I just gave him the index of banned hymns. We're not doing this. He goes, oh, thank you, because he didn't like them either, but now he doesn't have to do it. It's great.
Sorry, take it away, Father.
Yeah.
And then I say, oh, I don't choose the music, he does.
I love it. That's
Put
how
people
you do it,
in the infinity loop. It's great.
Oh man.
Yeah. All right. It seems to me like parishes need to be healthy and holy places. They can only do that if people buy in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about lay people buying into the parish and making the effort. Like priests need to step up too and give lay people the support that's needed, and also be willing to break a couple of eggs in the name of doing things the right way.
Absolutely.
Just because it's always been done this way or this person has always wanted it like this, we've got to be willing to say there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. But ultimately it's got to be about working together.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Awesome.
Patrick, this was great. Tell us where we can find your book, how we can follow you on Substack,
So if you want
where
the
else to
book,
find you.
you can. What day is this going out?
This will come out next Monday.
Okay, so the book is out. It's out.
Okay, yeah.
Sweet.
It's February 2nd. You can go to saveyourparish.com and you can get it for today only. It's like 99 cents, the ebook. So you can get it for 99 cents on February 2nd. And then you can also get the paperback if you like paperbacks. But go to saveyourparish.com to get that. And then if you want to follow me on Substack, you can go to catholicpat.com. So that's to saveyourparish.com and catholicpat.com. That's where you can find it.
Cool. Sweet.
Pat, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for letting me. This is fun. I was really looking forward to this, and I was not disappointed.
Yeah. All right. See you next time.
That was fun. I have so many ideas about like how to
Yeah, I
do
was
this
curious if you were getting ideas for your own parish and like implementation and things like that.
I don't know so much about ideas for my own parish. I feel like there's this combination thing that I just kind of always come to, which is there's only so much that I, as the pastor, will ever be able to do. And I think that I might be overly sensitive to it because I'm a priest. I think sometimes people look at the priest and almost like highlight too much. Oh, father should do this, and I couldn't possibly do it unless father wants it to happen. And then at the same time, I think priests sometimes are unwilling to like let their lay people take the lead on certain things because they know that ultimately that requires more from them. Like, Matt, if you come to my parish as a new parishioner and you start to do
Yeah, I want to start a Bible
suppose you
study.
start a Bible study, and then that starts getting the families, because you're doing it for families, right? It's a family Bible study. Now there's families getting together, and now they want a time for adoration, and so they want Father to like expose the Blessed Sacrament for them and hear their confessions. It'd be easier for me and my schedule if you didn't do the Bible study for families. You know, there's a risk.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's the greatest thing in the world because it's going to bring life to the parish. So if I want to be a priest who just sits in his office all day, then I don't really want you getting active. And if I don't want to be a priest who sits in his office all day, I want you to get active. But maybe I'm a priest who doesn't trust that people know things, and so I'm not going to let you do something unless I've had the chance to like check out your I want to see your curriculum vitae first and all that. So like there's I think a danger of like priests get too active, try to do too many things at the same time.
Yeah, but that's that problem with catechesis, right? Or like tradition, whichever word you want to use, of the idea of it being handed on for generations. But like, hey, it didn't get handed on for the last 4 to 5 generations. And so like, what do we do with that?
I apologize to whoever it was that I had this conversation with recently because I cannot remember who you are. I was talking with a brother priest. I don't know. I don't know. No, it was a priest, and I don't know if he's a tangent listener or not. But we were having this conversation, and he said one of the things that a lot of priests neglect is that they have a role to be teachers, and that's not only expressed in homilies. They have a role to teach, and are they willing to teach their parishioners? Are they willing to like run a study for their parish? Are they willing to do that adult level catechesis and actually teach the faith, or do they kind of say, I take care of my teaching role by giving homilies, which is not the fullness of the teaching role.
You know, it's funny. I mean, it's not a direct. Well, I guess maybe it is a direct comparison. That's like one of the most fundamental roles of a father.
Yeah.
Being a teacher. Like if you're a dad and you fail to teach your son how to be a man, you have failed.
Yeah.
You have failed as a dad, you know? And so it's the same deal. Like you are a father, you're a spiritual father. You are called to teach. And if you don't teach your people, you know, I mean, now there's other elements to it, you know, obviously, right? You also get to forgive sins. That's pretty sweet, you know? But like, but you know what I mean?
The priest has the role of governing, sanctifying, and teaching.
Yeah.
Those are the three munera of the priesthood. And it's easy to do like the munus sanctificandi. I'm going to celebrate the sacraments. Easy enough. That's like the primary purpose that we exist. The munus regendi,
and the thing that you can do distinctly.
Right. The munus regendi, where we're talking about like the governing office, we sometimes get too much into the HR. What was it that
He called it
yeah, the
HRifying it.
HRification of
That's what he said. Yeah.
like we run
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
those problems. Um,
That was
yeah,
Stephen
Stephen
White.
White talked about that, right? We run into the like pastors maybe getting too stuck on administrative detail instead of on the stuff that actually matters. And then there's a lot of guys who just aren't comfortable teaching or who think that nobody will be interested, you know. But the reality is we should try stuff. Like people are interested. People are interested
Yeah.
in doing things. And this is where um, I feel like there's almost the fear of being rejected. And it comes on both sides. So on the one hand, priests to laity. The priest is afraid that lay people will reject his offer of a class. I'm going to teach a 6-week course on
The Gospel
exactly.
of Matthew. Yeah.
And people are he's afraid that people aren't going to respond. So he doesn't offer it because he's afraid people aren't going to respond. On the other side, you have lay people who are like, we'd like to get a group together that will study the rosary and pray the rosary. But we're afraid Father will say no, that there's not enough room or that there's no space for it. So rather than talk to him about it, we just won't do it at all. And then there's like the bigger corporate issue that we have in the life of the church, which is like we want to do something, but we're going to have to get everybody safe environments certified and trained and everything. And we just don't want to deal with the hassle. And like, we've got to be willing to deal with the hassle. We've got to be willing to deal with the possibility that it's not going to be as big as we want it to be. And just do the thing, because that's actually how you get the thing started. The avalanche begins with one thing falling. Yes. And then it's off to the races, right? But we have to we have to be willing to take that first step. And I think that's where often priests, often lay people, there's a struggle, and we've just got to be willing to acknowledge that struggle, deal with it, and then go.
Yeah. This also reminds me of the document on the role of the theologian. I think it came out of the CDF. But the short of it is, right, like the role of the theologian is to assist the magisterium, basically, But like you could take that principle and apply it to the parish, which is like, maybe you don't have to teach the class, like or like better yet, let's say you teach the first class and the avalanche begins, and it's like you need to hire another teacher, and it's like, well, that's what the theologian is for, and like thank goodness that the theologian is there, that you can have a second class,
right.
Like you're this close to university, Father Sam, so close.
I mean, geographically, yes, and territorially, my parish encompasses Fairfield University, and so as I like to remind the Jesuits, they are my parishioners.
Yes, exactly. Nice. Yeah.
Anyway, I was excited to come across Patrick's article, and then I was surprised to find some of the response articles. What was funny was it felt to me like some of the response articles were like trying to be critical of him, when really they were just adding and fleshing out a lot of the stuff that I think he was actually getting at.
I think it was the result of him trying to keep his article to 500 words. Like a lot of especially one of the responses that I had texted to you was like, it took me like 15 minutes to read this thing, like it was many more words than 500. I don't know how many thousand, but it was several thousand.
And this is one of the issues we have in our landscape today, especially. I guess Substack is just social media, isn't it? But like especially in the landscape that we're in, you're going to get slammed.
It's better than your traditional social media, though,
but like
I would say
he got long form slammed for things that he didn't say, or for things that he omitted from a very short article, instead of like give the guy the grace of, this is a shorter article, right?
And admittedly, most of those things we talked about today, lest someone, I guess you can go read the other things on Substack, but we discussed most of them. And really, they all came down to people saying, but here's my reason for going somewhere further. And he, in a response to all of these articles, actually at some point says, if this is going to cause your family spiritual harm, don't go to the church
Yeah.
closest to you.
Right.
And it's like, right, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I think that this
You
is
know?
this is maybe less about the subject at hand and more about the cultural soup that we're
Although I
swimming
did
in.
like the way that he
Yeah.
said it in this interview, that he said he used the word preference. It's the preferential option. And I like that phrase because that implies that there are times where the better move is to go a little further.
Yeah. There's going to be times.
But the preferential option.
Yeah. But there's like we're living in an era now where you're going to get criticized, but there's no like, let me raise this question. So you publish something like that and something comes up. Instead of writing a response piece, what if we started posting open questions? Like, let's like get back into a sort of a dialogue. G.K. Chesterton and H.G. Wells used to write back and forth in the newspapers. They would have these like open public debates basically, but in writing, where they would raise questions with each other and answer the questions. They would criticize each other, and like, actually there's something really to that. We've lost that. And I think that's a cultural deficit that we have. I don't know how to fix that one. That's way off topic. Let's fix our parishes first. Let's build community. Let's be faithful.
Take ownership.
Let's go for it.
All right, Father Sam. See you next time. Thanks for watching today's video. Let us know what you thought down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.